You are all so wonderful. But welcome, each and every one of you, for this evening's incredible ceremony and wedding. My name is Ray, father of the bride, Lamontagne. I am also the proud new father-in-law of Chris Milmo. So I want to ask every one of you to please raise your glasses to toast Mr. and Mrs. Chris and Nicole Milmo. But since we live, I'm told by my wife every day, in a new world, I want you to also please raise your glass and toast Mrs. and Mr. Nicole and Chris Lamontagne. Who said that man's names always had to come first, huh? I think I have half the audience is in agreement with me. The other half has got a problem. Yeah. By the way, I'm going to say some wonderful things about my daughter, but I am going to roast Chris. I'm doing that because that's really part of our relationship, and I'm doing it because he's so roastable. I don't know if that's a word, but it certainly fits Chris. I also want to thank Jimmy Canton for an extraordinary ceremony. This is truly a hole-in-the-wall wedding, and so many people here are connected to the hole-in-the-wall. And I chaired that organization for over 25 years. But I heard a lot of stories last night, and I realized that even though I was chair, I knew nothing about what was going on at camp. I also want to thank Jim Milmo for last night. What a wonderful evening. And Corny, I think you all know by now, and his wife, Alex, and the entire family really played a vital role in the success of the Hole in the Wall. I also want to recognize my wife, Monica. Those of you who heard her words last night, especially about our daughter, Nicole, could not have been more insightful about what Nicole really is in our lives. Monica was an amazing mother. And Nicole is very much the image of her mother. But I think that I also made a little contribution to her education. Because when she was in preschool, and the teacher was trying to build the vocabulary of her students, she had a game that they would play where she would ask each student if they could identify a word for each name, each alphabet, each letter in the alphabet. And when it came to X, the only one in the room that raised her hand was Nicole. So she was called upon, and she said, ex-wives. So let me share with you the story of how Chris attempted to ask our permission to marry our daughter. Anyways, I realized something was up. And I suddenly started getting these phone calls from, and you can now identify the person calling, Milmo. And so I avoided answering as long as I could. But he was persistent and very clever. So he called Monica's phone. And it just so happened that Monica was cooking dinner that night. And I happened to be sitting in the kitchen, and when her phone rang, I picked it up. And he was very surprised, obviously, but he said, is there any chance you could put Monica on the phone? So I said, sure. And I asked Monica to come over, and I gave her the phone. And so he said, Monica, I'm calling to ask you and Ray for permission to marry your daughter. Monica, thinking I couldn't hear, pressed the button that she thought was the conference button, but she hung up on him. This is a true story. So I talked to Chris later, and he said, oh, my first thought was, well, that didn't go over very well. And he said, I decided that I'd have to go to plan B. So I said to him, well, what was plan B? And he said, plan B was I was going to go back to my school and become a monk. So, Nicole, you may have single-handedly saved the Roman Catholic Church. Nicole, I will try my best not to cry when talking about you. From the very first time I saw you, you took my breath away. And I love you with all my heart. I also admire you for what you've become and who you are. You were an adorable baby. You were delightful as a child. And you were awesome as an athlete, as an adult. You never went through the terrible twos or the terrible teens. And if you've been saving up those periods in your life, I feel sorry for Chris. But today, you were a beautiful bride, and you still take my breath away. Chris, I'm going to ask you a question which everyone in this room wants me to ask, and that is, what the hell took you so long? As with Nicole, talking about you may make me cry, but for different reasons. Actually, similar to Nicole, when I first saw you at camp, you took my breath away. Of course, you were sitting on my chest. When I knew you were marrying my daughter, I decided to do a little research on Milmos. Well, yeah, you're right. Somebody else must have done the research too. Yeah. So I Googled the name Milmo, and I'm not making this up, but the Milmos have a coat of arms, which I was pleased about. But they describe a Milmo as chubby, bald, and happy. So I knew you were a Milmo. But my friend, you are a very lucky man. Not just because you're marrying my daughter, but because you were loved deeply by a mother and a father. Now you have added a mother-in-law who we heard last night also loves you. Hey, 3 out of 4 is not bad. In baseball, that's a very good average, you know. But, as I said, you are a very lucky man. And it so happens that I also love you. So you're batting 1,000, my friend. For now. So we have an amazing couple. And they are so very much alike. They both radiate goodness and joy. They both spend their time helping others. They are both humble and empathetic. They both have a marvelous sense of humor. They both know that life is full of challenges and setbacks, and they are relentless in their pursuit of justice for all. Nicole and Chris, you both simply take my breath away. Thank you.